watching the battle, yeah. Say what you want about me, yeah, but I'm a living in the green world, and I need the air to breathe. Some will say you gotta get your kicks by removing love from a natural chip. But metal will rust and money will burn, yeah. And on the final page I ask, were you living in the green world? And did you give some in return?
So the hike that we're doing today is a part of Oregon Wild's Wilderness Summer. And for those of you who haven't already attended a Wilderness Summer hike, the purpose is to get Oregonians out into wild places in Oregon that currently aren't protected, and that if Congress were to do the right thing and approve them as wilderness, would be protected in perpetuity. BARC also leads a monthly hike to Mount Hood National Forest every second Sunday of the month. And this Sunday is our second Sunday hike. So we have two organizations involved in the hike today. We're in the Roaring River Roadless Area, which is the largest unprotected roadless forest in Mount Hood National Forest, and is proposed for wilderness protections under the current Mount Hood Wilderness Proposal. This area also is a very good area to discuss some of the work that BARC is currently doing regarding the removal of roads in Mount Hood National Forest. There are 4,000 miles of road in Mount Hood National Forest, and we are currently working with communities surrounding the mountain to make sure that roads to nowhere and roads that are doing damage to our environment are being removed, so that the Forest Service can take what little money it actually does have for road maintenance and put it toward maintaining roads that people actually use and want to keep maintained for access to recreation areas. We're going to be doing an in and out hike. It's about 3 miles in, 3 miles out. Given the mosquitoes that we have right now, I'm guessing we won't be doing a whole lot of stopping, but we certainly will stop when we get to the top near Serene Lake. Sean has a first aid kit with him, but to be honest, the absolute most important safety mechanism that we have on these hikes is just be very careful where you step. We are going to be on a trail all day today, but it's going to be rocky, it's going to be uneven, and just take the time you need to get on the trail, and we're in no rush today. So if you want to go slower than everyone else is going, go ahead and go slow and we can all make up for it. Let's talk about Roaring River, where we are briefly. The Roaring River Roadless Area is one of the most unique places in Mount Hood National Forest. And the reason for this is twofold. One, it is the largest unprotected roadless forest in Mount Hood and is being proposed for wilderness protection. It's approximately 30,000 acres of forest that hasn't been logged, doesn't have roads in it, and for all intents and purposes, it is a wilderness area. and it simply doesn't have legislated protections. The other reason that it's unique is because we are on the crest of the Cascade Mountains right now. And for those of you who have spent some time in Oregon and know your forest ecology, you know that Oregon has two very different ecosystems. One is the wet west side, west of the Cascade Mountains, and the other is the dry east side. The east side of Oregon receives approximately 1/10 of the moisture that we receive on the west side. For most of you living in Portland, this probably drives you nuts right around March. But where we are in Roaring River is actually on the crest of the mountains, and so while you have a lot of the characteristics of a wet west side forest, you also start to see some characteristics of an east side forest. You start to see Engelmann spruce trees like the ones that are right behind me, that are more characteristic of a higher elevation forest on the crest of the mountains. You wouldn't find this lower down on the west side of the Cascades. So it's a really interesting ecosystem. The area burned in a forest fire about 120 years ago, approximately. And so what you'll see is that the forest in general is all around that same age. And the beautiful part about it is that this forest came back naturally. Whereas many of the areas surrounding here were logged right after the fire, which I would like to say used to be the protocol in our national forest, but the reality is it still is the protocol, is that we're still logging burned forest, and it does enormous damage to the ecosystem. This is an area that came back entirely on its own, and if anyone wants to argue that we can do better than Mother Nature can, I think this is a really good spot to think about that. So, one last thing about Roaring River. The area that we're going to is Serene Lake, and that name is for a very good reason. We're going into one of the most remote places in Mount Hood National Forest. Your opportunities for solitude here are probably unmatched anywhere else in the forest. And so, while normally I particularly and others might be really chatty on a hike like this, if there were ever a hike that was a good opportunity to actually reflect on the fact that you're very far away from a road and you're very far from civilization, this is it. So I'm sure nobody has their cell phone on or anything like that, but please take the opportunity to reflect on this hike and enjoy the silence when you get it.
But feel free to ask questions and
Yeah, of course.
stuff like that too.
So speaking of, does anyone have any questions?
Why isn't this a roadless area or whatever it is, a wilderness area?
Why isn't it currently protected?
Since it is roadless and hasn't been logged and all that, why isn't it? Like there's just Huckleberry or whatever it is, the Salmon Huckleberry Wilderness, just not too far away.
The conventional wisdom is that there are a few places in the West, particularly Mount Hood National Forest, that were spared the chainsaw during the 20th century. And those areas that were simply because they were not accessible. And they were very hard to get to, very remote, and particularly very steep. And for the viewers at home, you weren't able to experience the drive that we just took to get here, but for those of you that were in the cars, you know how steep it was and how long it took us to drive up this gravel road. We're simply in a very remote, very rugged place. And the bottom line is they just didn't get here yet. One last thing that's unique about this area that's related to the fact that it hasn't been logged and isn't protected is that in the original Mount Hood Wilderness Bill, when it was first conceived of by Congress in, I want to say 2002, Roaring River wasn't actually included in it. The original proposal was called the Lewis and Clark Mount Hood Wilderness Bill, and it only included areas right around the mountain and in the gorge. And the woman that you met this morning, if you met the carpool in Portland, Leslie, she and a number of volunteers who have spent time up here and fell in love with this area lobbied very hard to get Congress to actually pay attention and realize that this is one of the most unique places in the forest and that it would be a crime to move a wilderness bill forward without having this area be a part of it. And so one of the things that we'll do on this hike today is talk about how we can actually make a difference in getting this area protected as wilderness and do something good to protect Mount Hood National Forest. Bottom line is, if you ever think that one person can't make a difference in helping protect the forest, Roaring River is the perfect place to contrast that. We have one person who knows this and loves this area and got it included in the wilderness bill. So.
Flowers in the meadow I love, flowers in the meadow I love, flowers in the meadow I love you. I meet you in the morning there, we'll hold hands, we'll have no cares. Time will stop for us for just a while. Though I try, act so tough, beauty here is just enough to keep my soul from freezing, from going cold. Pardon my emotions, dear. It's the love I have to lose, I feel. All the places sacred and they lie.
This is an orchid. It's one of, I believe, 13 native orchids in Oregon. And can anyone tell me what's so unique about this plant?
It's not green.
Good job, Martin. It has no chlorophyll in it. This plant isn't photosynthesizing. It was widely believed that these coral roots were saprophytic, meaning that they actually got their nutrients from decomposing matter in the forest floor. But more recently, it's actually been thought that these plants are mycotrophic, which means that they're actually getting their nutrients from the mycorrhiza of fungus that grows in the soil in these forests. And it's, for me, anytime I see one of these plants, to me it's a sign of a healthy forest, because what it means is that regardless of how old the trees are around you or what the forest looks like, it means that the soil is really healthy. Because for a forest to have mycorrhiza and a healthy fungus ecosystem in the soil is a really good sign that your forest is healthy as well. And it's one of the reasons that you want to be very you want to think in terms of logging that's occurring in the national forest. It's more than just the trees that are being taken out of the forest. There are a number of impacts that are caused, and one of the biggest is ground disturbance. We're actually all doing it right now. Some of these mycorrhiza are only a single cell wide, and even a footstep can break them. And so take our footsteps and turn them into tractors that are hauling trees out of the forest, and you have enormous impacts that sometimes the forest can't recover from. The question that I don't have the experience to answer is whether or not this relationship is parasitic, or if it's somehow a mutual relationship.
I mean, they don't know if the coral root's giving anything
back.
Yeah.
Right. It may just be taking nutrients for itself and laughing all the way to the bank.
Some of the bigger trees, are they older than 120 years?
That would be my guess.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. The only reason I would actually question that at all is because I haven't seen any fire scars on these trees.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I have seen trees this big in Mount Hood that are about 120 years old.
Yeah.
On really productive areas, the Douglas firs will grow very fast. The reason I think it's actually possible that that's true is because you'll notice in this area that these Douglas fir trees are by far the biggest trees, and that everything actually follows pretty good normal succession in this forest. So your Douglas fir trees are the biggest. Your hemlocks and true firs are slightly smaller because they grew up in the shadow of the Douglas fir. It's a good question.
Fortunes lie with the meadows here. I never leave until the risk subsides. Now I try, act so tough. The beauty here is just enough to keep me
The mosquitoes are partying.
Yep.
They're glad we finally made it up here. So Serene Lake is behind us, and one of the most amazing things about this lookout is that, by my count, it is the longest unbroken view of Mount Hood, which unfortunately is behind clouds today. But there are very few places you can actually see the mountain without clear cuts marring your view. And because we're in the Roaring River Roadless Area, and because just north of the Roaring River Roadless Area is the Salmon Huckleberry Wilderness Area, you actually have an entirely pristine view of the mountain from here. And it's about 20 miles as the crow flies of forested hills. It's a gorgeous view, so we can all just take a moment and picture it in our minds. Given the circumstances and like the density of mosquitoes, we would normally spend some time hanging out talking and probably maybe writing a letter or something like that to help protect this beautiful place that we're in. But I'm actually going to suggest that we keep moving today. The question is, do we want to move onward down the trail to the lake and back? Or do we want to head back to the car? It kind of depends on how people are feeling. I think we've made good enough time that we can go down to the lake if people want. I think it adds about 2 miles to the trip, and it's down and up.
And there will probably be a lot more mosquitoes by the lake.
Yeah.
That's the only bummer.
So speak up. How are you guys feeling?
I've had enough of
I want to
mosquitoes.
go back. I will
People shouldn't
take the
feel
keys
like
if
Fair
you
enough.
guys decide to go down. I don't want to.
Yeah. I'm mainly hearing that people are ready to head back. If you look at that valley over there, that's the main Roaring River Valley. And if you look at a map, what it actually does is it curls all the way around like this. So we're essentially surrounded by Roaring River right now. The headwaters are probably right somewhere over there to the northeast.